All right, let's take this discussion forward now and bring in Dr. Suhayfa Bhamjee, Senior Lecturer in Criminal Law at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Dr. Bhamjee, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. So this was somewhat of a surprising decision then, given that, Advocate Mothibi was not among the 6 candidates interviewed for the NDPP position. Let's get your reaction then, Doctor, and just how the President used Section 179 of the Constitution.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Unati, and the viewers. It's always a pleasure to be with you all. So surprising because I think there was at least one candidate that clearly stood out, certainly from those of us in the viewing public, out of the 6 that were interviewed. But we don't actually know what criteria the panel was actually looking for and what sort of mandate they were given by the president or, in that respect. But yeah, it was always a possibility. I think when we look at Section 179 of the Constitution, it's always a possibility that the president's prerogative is to appoint anyone that he deemed fit and appropriate for the role of NDPP. So what that really means is that even if the panel had come forward and said, these are our top 3, the president could have ignored that and appointed someone outside of that sphere if, in his estimation, the 3 identified weren't up to standard, whatever that standard might be. Again, that's the big question mark. So what Section 79 does is it works in conjunction with the National Prosecuting Authorities Act. But Section 179 gives the president the power to appoint unilaterally the National Director of Public Prosecutions. That's basically it, that the hiring, the firing, will come from him.
Yeah. And looking at just how that advisory panel expressly found then that none of the shortlisted candidates was suitable, if the panel finds all 6 candidates unsuitable, does that then paint or point to flaws in the selection criteria itself, or perhaps point to other deeper institutional issues within the NPA, vetting processes? Just help us understand that.
Well, possibly vetting processes. Remember, if we just think about it as an interview process for any job that any of us have ever had to interview for, just because we've been shortlisted or just because we've been interviewed doesn't mean that we are a shoo-in or that anyone else is guaranteed to get a particular post. So let's work on the assumption that the criteria for the minimum criteria was met. But over and above that, practically, it's not unheard of that a rigorous interview process is undertaken. And sometimes in the interview, there's something that's unimpressive or doesn't actually, or reveals itself as not meeting the criteria. So there's something to be said about not simply just picking out of the 6 and sort of forcing the issue and choosing the 3. But again, like I said before, to my mind, there were some candidates that clearly stood out as positive. But again, we won't know. So again, no guarantees with any interview process, simply because you made it onto the list or a list.
Yeah. Let's look then at Advocate Mothibi's background. President Cyril Ramaphosa, if you've been listening, saying that he is confident that he made the right decision in appointing Andy Mothibi as South Africa's new NDPP. We know him as the head of the SIU, the Special Investigating Unit, with a few successes under his name recently. He was also central, of course, during the G20's anti-corruption working group recently. Give us a bit of his earlier background.
Well, what we do know is that he came up through the ranks as a public prosecutor and then served as a magistrate, and then worked at 2 national banks and also rose very quickly in the ranks there when it came to security and that sort of thing, corruption-related issues. And now he finds himself at the SIU, with some successes, certainly. But yeah, that's really the long and short of it. We've not had the opportunity to sort of, from a public perspective, to scrutinize his CV as we've had the opportunity with the other 6 who were shortlisted. Listed. But again, that was just a sort of a boon or a gift that we were given. There was no requirement on the part of the president to even make such a process available to us. But it would have been nice to be able to look a little bit more clearly, closely, certainly from the outside looking in, as to what was, what set him above.
Yeah, and just in terms of the 1st of February, of course, he assumes that role. What would turning around the NPA practically look like in legal terms? What immediate actions would signal real reform rather than rhetoric? Given that he takes over from Shamila Batohi on the 1st of Feb. And does his background, with the little that we know, equip him, to deal with internal corruption within the NPA itself, which many experts say is one of the institution's biggest challenges at the moment?
Yeah, so again, it's the capture, the corruption issues that I think really, to be fair, anyone walking into this role or perhaps being dragged into the role of the National Director of Public Prosecutions would be facing quite an uphill battle. It's not an easy task to undertake. And again, you're asking, what should the priorities be? What should step 1 be? What should step 2 be? I think step 1 is getting a lay of the land, identifying what actually needs to be done. I think what's in Mothibi's favor is that he himself has been critical of the NPA for its slowness in various processes. And hopefully that might be something that he would want to make a pet project and move in as towards remedying. But again, speeding things up also means upskilling, things like skill audits, and clearing out the rot and where the problems are, and the problem people where those are. But again, the tenure is meant to be a tenure for the National Director of Public Prosecutions, or at the age of 65, whichever comes first. And I don't think time is on the side of Mothibi in that respect. So he's going to have to pick his priorities very, very closely, very, very carefully as to what are measurable, doable in the short space of time that he does have.
Yeah, and of course a lot of criticism around or not even, just questions around whether he will ride above the political noise if he was ever confronted with such. But thank you so much, Dr. Bhamjee, for your time. I really do appreciate it. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Dr. Suhayfa Bhamjee, Senior Lecturer in Criminal Law at the University of KwaZulu-Natal.